What's up, guys? It's your boy KFB23 on the watch, and I'm back with another video. And today we're reacting to Dom 2K. The time Kobe's legacy was challenged, and he responded. And subscribe to the channel. So let's get in the video.
Once upon a time, I made a video titled The 3 Times LeBron's Legacy Was on the Line, and he responded. That's before How Does This Affect LeBron's Legacy became a Twitter meme. Either way, after that video, I've always wanted to find moments for Kobe to do one similar to that. However, you review his career and find that there just weren't that many times where his legacy was on the line to begin with. He had the luxury of playing the first chunk of his career with the most dominant force to ever play the game, so even when there were a couple of close calls, he wasn't quite singled out into the spotlight like LeBron was in his cases. That being said, I did recall one interesting stretch in his career where the pressure had built up to a fever pitch, and had this final moment gone the wrong way, we would likely remember his entire career differently. The legacy defining adversity throughout the first half of Kobe's career was relatively minimal given that once he and Shaq clicked, winning became an expectation. He had great moments such as taking over when Shaq wasn't showing up in Game 7 against the Blazers, saving the day in the finals after a sprained ankle when he fouled out against the Pacers, and killer performances against the Kings and Spurs that provided some of the most visually impressive games we'll ever see. Had he have lost in any of these moments, surely it would have been damaging, but they wouldn't have actually destroyed anything given that A, it was still pretty early on in his career, and B, there hadn't been multiple individual crushing failures building up to those moments, so it's kind of a stretch to say he was defending anything there as much as he was building. This all changed in the year 2004 when he dished out one of his career's worst series against the Detroit Pistons. It's because he did so much afterwards that this failure is brought up pretty sparingly, I would say, and
I don't know. If you're talking smack about Kobe and you don't have him in your top 10, um, they bring up that performance a lot. They bring up that performance a lot. He was ass. I would say he was bad in that series, very bad in that series, damaging. Like, if we just passed the ball to Shaq, they probably would have won that series, but hey, it's fine, bro. RP to go.
still, it was an abysmal 23 points and 3 assists while shooting a cringeworthy 38% from the field. To make matters worse, he averaged nearly 4 turnovers per game, and in the 4 losses, his field goal percentage was only 33%. It's easily his worst final series, and then you have to consider that it struck the final blow to Shaq's tenure in LA. Surprisingly, though, this was only the beginning to the most vulnerable point in his career. Kobe's main focus became to prove that he could win without Shaq, because it drove him crazy knowing that the narrative would eventually become he could only find success with him. This was immediately followed up by not making the playoffs in the first year, blowing a 3-1 lead to the Suns with no Stoudemire in the second, then being gentlemen swept by the Suns in the third, meaning that under his leadership, they'd failed to so much as make it out of the first round without Shaq during that stretch. It also didn't help matters that he was seen as an extremely selfish player in those years, giving critics reason to call him a horrible teammate, and levying allegations that he'd quit against the Suns in 2006 by only taking 3 shots in the second half of Game 7. As the story goes, it was seen as a vindictive way to get a point across about the playstyle he'd taken so much criticism for. In any case, those 3 seasons did a lot of damage to his image and career. He had tons of personal success and stats, which provide some of our favorite highlights, while simultaneously having little to no success winning. The whole lone wolf routine was beginning to backfire on the type of career he planned on having. Thus, he requested a trade, vetoed a couple of them that would have gutted the rosters he was potentially being sent to, yet stayed put just long enough for the Lakers to pull off one of the biggest heists in NBA history.
Kwame Brown and Mark Gasol for Pau Gasol. Mark Gasol, hey, respectable, maybe a Hall of Famer in his own right. But Pau Gasol and Kobe Bryant, just for Kwame Brown and a rookie Mark Gasol, hey, I'd take that deal in deal of the week. Finessing.
The Lakers would immediately return to power with the addition of Pau Gasol, and in hindsight, it was pretty unfortunate timing because also in 2008, the Celtics had built the first modern super team that was likely to be a problem for years to come. So at that moment, Boston and LA were reasonably considered to be on a collision course. What better place for Kobe Bryant to finally cement his legacy? No Shaquille O'Neal, but a good team nonetheless going up against a juggernaut in the greatest rivalry in sports. It was a great opportunity, yet it predictably got away from LA whilst getting pretty nasty in the process. Not only would the Lakers lose in 6, the Celtics pulled off one of the greatest comebacks in history on their home floor to take a 3-1 lead. They ironically trailed by 24 points and were pretty much expected to lay down as the Lakers tied the series. Kobe went on to have one of his worst performances in such a crucial moment, scoring only 17 points on a horrific 31% from the field.
Damn, that's twice. Actually, not. Damn. He was struggling out to go for.
2, with a final chance to extend the series to 7, the Celtics laid down a historic 39-point blowout. Kobe once again floundered, posting 22 points, 1 assist, and 31% from the field. That meant in his first chance to win a title without Shaq's help and make a much-needed statement, his team was promptly handled by a sworn rival. This loss ate away at him, and he was admittedly still bothered by it as he was close to retiring. Sure, he would at long last get over the mountaintop in 2009, however, you could still feel something was missing given that they had to settle for the Orlando Magic by virtue of Kevin Garnett being injured. While that takes
If Kobe only won 4 rings and lost the Celtics back in 2008 and 2009, like 2010, that this ring would look fraudulent. Fraudulent, like you had to beat the hurt Celtics were hurt that year, and you beat the Jameer Nelson-less Magic team. That's an all-star right there. Like, okay, that would look fraudulent, but hey, he won back to back.
nothing away from the accomplishment, it would have still been more fulfilling to see him get it back in blood against the Celtics in a rematch. And in 2010, he was finally going to get that chance. Boston had aged considerably in 2 years and were no longer the juggernaut they were when KG was still capable of being Defensive Player of the Year, yet it was a big three nonetheless that were proving they could win multiple titles if healthy. As Kobe would go on to mention in later productions, failure twice in a row in a rivalry of this magnitude was simply not on the table. That, combined with all the downs he'd endured since the 2004 finals, would have been the kind of roadblock capable of preventing him from sitting at the table with Jordan and company, which was his ultimate goal. Sure, he'd have 4 rings, sure, he'd have been a legendary player, but he'd won almost all of those titles with Shaq, resulting in only 1 finals MVP, meaning critics would have likely gone on to view the 2009 finals much less favorably than they do in this timeline. So yes, losing to the Celtics twice would have caused irreversible damage. The specific reference for this video is Game 7 of the rematch. This was an incredibly hard-fought series that saw Boston take a 3-2 lead with the chance to celebrate this championship on the Lakers' home floor. LA responded by blowing them out of the building in Game 6, which also featured their defensive anchor Kendrick Perkins suffering a torn ACL. There'd be no excuses though, as the 2008 series was conversely played without Andrew Bynum. So, in short, Kobe Bryant had 1 game to totally cement himself and recoup some of the unfortunate events of 2008. By now, we all know how it ends, but take a closer look at how things were playing out. He was having a treacherous offensive night, falling straight into Boston's traps.
Garbage. He said at a certain point he's had to stop shooting and had to get the boards, bro. I think he had like 19 or 11 rebounds. I know there's a big gap. It's like an 8-point gap, but like I don't know for sure. Like I think he had 19 or 11.
Terrible shots and playing hero ball, resulting in a 6 of 24 shooting night with 2 assists while going 0 of 6 from 3. In the biggest game of his life, he was simply failing to reproduce the legendary output of the man he'd spent much of his career being compared to, his idol. The 15 boards he pulled down were doing a lot of carrying that night, which remains the most rebounds grabbed by a shooting guard in an NBA Finals game, by the way. As usual, he also came up in the clutch, as when the momentum began to shift away from the Celtics, he hit one of the most important shots of the game with his patented pull-up. Funny enough, one of his lowly 2 assists for the game went to Ron Artest, who definitely hit the dagger.
Kobe passed me the ball. He actually passed it. Oh my God.
You know, and he trusted us, and he made us feel so good. And he passed me the ball. He never passed me the ball. And he passed me the ball.
Ron Artest. That changed the entire game. And legit, if you miss that shot, Boston has a chance to win the game. On the other end, it's pretty much over. I ain't gonna lie. In a fast break with Rajon Rondo, I ain't gonna lie. It looks tough if Ron Artest breaks that shot.
This was just a slow, ugly, grinding game for everybody. On top of all the missed free throws, which Kobe was included in, Pau Gasol shot 6 for 16, Artest 7 of 18, Pierce 5 of 15, and Allen 3 of 14. Overall, Boston shot 40% compared to LA's 32%. It was a very clear defensive affair for both sides, yet a grand total of 0 people would have used that bail for Kobe had the result had come out the other way. The Artest 3 doesn't drop, Boston never blows the second half lead they amassed, so that they end up winning Game 7 on Kobe Bryant's home floor to hand him 2 losses in 3 years in a rivalry. Any and everything else would have been ignored about that game, that series, hell, even about the 2009 series. The narrative surrounding his career would have been that he was carried by Shaq, put up empty stats and lost for years after he ran him out of town, won a consolation title against a random Magic team, and then lost to Boston twice, which were the real top dogs of the East at the time. The only possible retribution for this would have been some timeline where he won multiple titles after this loss and maybe matched up with LeBron and beat him. And if for some reason you're not convinced this one loss could do all of that, ask yourself what you know about Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. As detailed in Baylor's book, almost all of their legacy was riddled by being totally dominated by the Celtics despite the level of players that they individually were. So even being a Celtics fan myself, I'll take this version of history where Kobe is 5-2 with this jewel in his crown. Okay, I'm lying. With the time machine, I'm definitely undoing this
I'm gonna
shit.
say you're a Celtics fan, bro. You're capping. I know you ain't gonna cap for Kobe. Hey, it's Kobe Day, but I ain't gonna sit there and lie. He's a Celtics fan. He wanted that win. I know for a fact 13-year-old Dom or 11-year-old Dom wanted that win.
Now that this video is over, I encourage lying with the time machine where Kobe is 5-2 with this jewel in his crown. Okay, I'm lying. With the time machine, I'm definitely undoing this shit. So now that this video is over, I encourage you to, at some point, go view the older version that I made many years ago. If you enjoyed this, I will go back through some of the favorite scripts that I wrote and try to make them more watchable. Modernize them, remaster. So hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a new video drops. Appreciate you watching.
Hey, thank you guys for watching the video. Sub to the channel. Sub to my channel. I'm out. Peace.